Thanks for staying with us. President Muhammadu Buhari spoke this morning to the nation, addressed the nation concerning the current issues we're having with the naira notes. He said specifically that the old naira notes will remain, that's 200 naira notes, will remain a legal tender till April 10th. He made this declaration in a national broadcast to Nigerians this morning. In line with the Section 20, Subsection 3 of the CBN Act 2007, all existing 1,500 notes will remain redeemable only at CBN and designated points. Now, joining the conversation to explain the economic impact of this decision is a fiscal policy partner, an Africa tax leader at PricewaterhouseCoopers Company, PwC, Mr. Taiwo Oloyede. Welcome to the show, sir.
Yes, hello, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us this morning. All right, so let's start with the speech from our president this morning. He was reminding Nigerians that one of the main reasons why this policy was implemented was to strengthen the CBN's the ability to control the amount of naira in circulation. We've heard this over the past few weeks. We want Nigerians to understand the impact of too much naira in the system and why it was important for CBN to make this policy.
Okay, so from what I could hear from your question in terms of the amount of naira in circulation, so the CBN said we have about 3.2 trillion naira in circulation, and Mr. President also repeated that in his broadcast. But if you think about the total money supply, which is not just the cash, right? There's a difference between currency and money supply. Currency is the physical notes and coins, whereas money is broader than that, including the deposits you have with bank, money you have in the financial markets, and so on and so forth. That percentage is actually small. It's one of the smallest in the world. US has over 10%, UK has close to 9%, EU, even India. So many countries have far more than what Nigeria has in terms of the currency in circulation to GDP, or whether you even calculate it per capita. In other words, divide the amount of currency by the population. Nigeria has only about $34 equivalent per person. Compared to, if you take what America has, USD, and you divide by the global population, not even American population, world's population, it will give you about $280 per person.
Wow.
On Earth. So, and then, some of the things that some of us don't understand is why on earth does the central bank expect that currency in circulation will be within the banking system? So they keep saying, and the president also said it also this morning, that the currency in circulation is not within the banking system. Currency are not supposed to be within the banking system. Otherwise, there will be no need to even print the notes in the first place. Currency is supposed to be in circulation. So the farmer in the village, the trader on the street, the vulcanizer, so the bus driver, that's where currency is supposed to be.
Well, as a follow-up to that, sir, you were saying something about financial inclusion. So they're trying to attract the informal sector into the banking system. Is that necessary with this policy?
No, financial inclusion does not mean that you no longer have cash in circulation. So I'm financially included. So I have bank accounts, I have different apps on my phone, and I still use cash when I want to, pay a vulcanizer to do my tire. I use cash when I want to pay a tip to a gatesman. I don't ask them for their POS, right? So there's no economy where you have no cash. Not a single economy in the world. Every economy uses cash. So I'm not saying that the CBN should not do what they're doing. I'm just saying that the data that we are using may be pushing us in the wrong direction, such that we now have the policy being implemented in a manner that is creating more pain than is necessary. I think the average Nigerian agrees that we need to go through some, sacrifices to make our country what we need it to be, but not when I have only 5,000 naira in my bank account and I want to pay for, to give my kids 200 naira to go to school. You're not going to give them a card, and when they want to buy a biscuit, they ask for POS, right? You want to pay for hospital bill, you can't pay it. We've seen people going naked in banking halls. That's not funny. Those are not people who created those problems for Nigeria. They just want to live their lives.
Yeah.
So we have to find a way to distinguish between illicit money, which is usually in hundreds, if not hundreds of millions, if not billions of naira, which in my view is easier to, to tackle than trying to punish the 200 million innocent Nigerians.
Okay, sir. So, the quagmire some of us are going to enter from next week now, like me, I've exhausted all the little cash I have, is that when the kids are going to school, they can no longer have snacks. So they will eat at home and go to school, and hopefully till they get back.
If you're speaking now, I can't hear you anymore.
Okay. Can you hear me now, sir?
Hello? Hello, sir. Can you hear me? Hello? Okay, I think we're having a bit of a connection issue. We need to get to... We still have our guest with us, Mr. Taiwo Oloyede. Sir, are you still there?
Yes, Taiwo Yedele.
Yes.
Okay, so Mr. Taiwo, I wanted to ask you, do you think it's right that the government is sending us back to the CBN to swap the money, knowing that individuals didn't have any direct interaction with the CBN in the first place? We paid our money into the banks, and now they're asking us to go to the CBN to redeem this money.
Yeah, so I think, what the CBN is trying to do is to comply with the provisions of the Central Bank Act that says that even if you, if you say that naira is no longer, a particular naira is no longer legal tender, you must still honor it when it's presented to you. But I do agree with you. It's quite awkward to ask the ordinary person to go to the central bank. First, you don't have an account with central bank, and they don't want to do a swap. So when you give them the money, how does it get into your account? How do you find, in fact, how many towns and villages have CBN, branches? I don't know of any. So you only find them in capital cities.
Exactly.
And if I have only 2,000 naira, the money and the transfer to get to the CBN that is closest to me might even be 10,000 naira. What I think the CBN should have done is to say that if you are depositing old notes, and is below a certain threshold, it can be as low as 100,000 naira. Still go to your bank and deposit it there. And the banks, when they are remitting it to the CBN, will provide a schedule of those who deposited so that they don't go and collect 100 billion from one politician and go and give to CBN. If you now have big amounts that is more than that threshold, you can say go to the central bank. According to the information provided by the Deposit Insurance Commission, about 98% of bank account holders have less than 500,000 naira in their bank account. So cover those people and let the big people with 100 million naira, 1 billion, 2 billion, be the ones to start looking for the, for the central bank offices.
Okay. Could you help us? Because the president is quite insistent on his speech that he is doing this only for our own good and to strengthen our economy and protect us, from corruption and unscrupulous politicians and things like that. And he sees this as doing something good for the citizens. And so I would like to know, what are the positives really of this policy and the way it is being implemented? Especially he mentions inflation, and he mentions exchange rate stability. Please, could you explain to us what the positives are, especially as regards inflation and exchange rate stability?
Yeah, so I couldn't hear you properly. I think your question was, around the stability.
Yes.
So I know the president mentioned the issues around price stability, inflation, money control, and all of that. But the reality is that, inflation is not influenced by whether you pay in cash or whether you use electronic payment to pay. So if you are buying bread or you are buying a meal from a restaurant, whether you give them 5,000 naira notes or whether you do that on your app, it's still money you're spending. It affects inflation. So inflation is affected by money supply, which is not only cash, it's money supply. So, and if you're saying, okay, for 200 naira old note to continue to be in circulation, then the question we need to ask ourselves is, The CBN said they have withdrawn over 2 trillion naira from the system. Do we have enough 200 naira notes, old and new? And the lower denomination, are they up to that amount that you have withdrawn? Because one recipe for creating chaos is when you withdraw 2 trillion and you inject 300 billion naira. So Nigerians will not convert to cashless overnight. It takes time.
Exactly.
Infrastructure is not even there. People have done bank transfers, for the past 5 days. They haven't seen the credit.
No.
POS, is down many times. So it's almost like saying that people should suffer and be helpless and not complain. So when people are poor and they are, hungry and they're angry, they cannot be rational. All this thing about make sacrifice for your country, doesn't work for someone who has only 2,000 naira and they cannot withdraw it to buy a gari. So they won't understand whatever you're saying because they don't see why they should be punished for a problem that they did not create in the first place.
Exactly.
So we can accomplish those objectives of price stability, monetary control, illicit, reducing illicit financial flow within the system, stopping politicians from, buying votes. We can do all of that without creating this level of pain that the ordinary people are having to go through.
Right.
And I also think that it's not, it's dangerous for, because the central bank has said that a number of times. The president said it also today. It's dangerous to keep blaming the banks. Because banks are very well organized. You can deal with them. You can punish them without telling anyone. Yeah. So when this narrative about banks are part of the problem, if you allow it to continue, we're going to create a bigger problem for ourselves when banks are being attacked all over the place. Because people won't know which bank is guilty or not. They just attack the next bank they can find. And if that affects the financial system, we're going to have a bigger problem on our hands.
Right.
Yeah. I was going to ask... How can they stop the politicians from depositing this money? If their problem is the politicians and the illicit money, how can they stop it without it affecting us? Because they want to stop politicians now, it's affecting me that I never collect political money before for my life. It's affecting a lot of people.
Yeah, I think
who haven't collected money.
Yes, I think the way I hear you is that how can this be solved without affecting the ordinary people? I think it's not complicated. If you use data, you would easily conclude that 99% of Nigerians don't have up to 10 million naira, either in cash in their bank account or the money they kept at home. Vast majority of Nigerians don't even have up to 500,000 naira they can boast of. Yeah. So you could have developed this policy to say that if you are bringing the old note and it was more than, maybe say 2 million naira, then you need a different set of documentation to know who you are, where you got the money from, what business are you doing, right? And then now that you say you take it to the central bank, also create a threshold. If you are bringing 5,000 naira, you can bring it to the bank. If you're bringing 1 billion naira, go to central bank so that EFCC knows who you are, ICPC, Financial Intelligence Unit, central bank. We can collect all your data. And of course, if you set a threshold like that to protect, 99% of Nigerians, nobody will go on the street because the people who have those big amounts of money, even when they don't like the process, they cannot protest because they don't want anybody to know that they even had 1 billion in the first place.
Right.
So both in terms of depositing the old notes,
right?
Yes.
What you said right now sounds really fundamental and basic for a CBN governor to propose to the president. Is it that? Do you think there is a deliberate action to actually just frustrate Nigerians? Because they keep saying it's because of the politicians, but what you just said is like it's a no-brainer. Don't you think? Why is it that they're not coming up with these suggestions for the people, or even finding ways to make it easier for regular Nigerians to swap or deposit their money?
People don't matter.
Okay, I could barely hear you. What I figured out is, are the policymakers not thinking in that line? Is that your question?
Yeah, about that, right. Yes.
Yeah, so I do think, first, I don't think that there was any need to do this in secret. So a lot of it was kept to, just between the CBN and the president. The finance minister was on record to have said that she wasn't even aware. I don't see anything wrong in carrying your economic team along. The security agencies, financial intelligence units, Ministry of Finance, even, to be honest, I'll say even the governors, right? So debate it so that you have all the plans, because whether they know or not, if somebody has 10 billion naira cash, at home, even if they know you are bringing out the policy, what would they do? Would they go and burn it, or would they go and dash it out to everyone? So there's no way they could defeat your objective.
Exactly.
But if you plan it properly, you'd have considered different scenarios. If this happens, what do we do? So there's nothing even wrong in CBN having enough new notes that they are keeping for when things get so hot like this. You release it so that you can douse the tension. If the ordinary man can get to the ATM and get 2,000, 5,000, a lot of these problems will go away. I think that we didn't have enough, thinking around what could go wrong and how that could be prevented before launching the program. And that for me was a big disappointment.
Okay, sir. We know that some governors had taken the federal government to court, asking for an extension for a while so that we are able to phase this out gradually. And now, this morning, the president is making a pronouncement that 200 naira notes should be released, and that's only what we are going to get. Do you think this action negates the fact that this matter is already in court? And how does the rule of law play in all of this?
No, I think we always have to respect the rule of law. And I think the president said that in his statement, even though it's not clear how allowing only 200 naira to circulate now means you've complied with the rule of law, where the Supreme Court says allow the old currency to circulate. So hopefully that we can find a balance, because when you don't comply with the Supreme Court, it goes beyond just the currency. It sends a very wrong signal to not only your country, but to the whole world, that we don't regard due process. So if you disagree with the Supreme Court, you could have also instituted a process, also to the Supreme Court to say, we don't think you have jurisdiction, we don't think you should have said this, you find a way to also resolve it using due process, not taking the laws into your hand just because you have the powers to do so. In fact, the central bank governor, was saying that to diplomats, even, a day before, to say, the deadline remains despite the Supreme Court ruling. I don't think that is good enough. We have to find a way to balance political expediency with compliance with due process and the rule of law.
Mariam.
Okay, I would just like to see, Nigerians are buying naira with naira. So I want to withdraw 10,000 naira, I have to pay 8,000 naira. I'm withdrawing 50,000 naira and I get 40, I pay 10,000 naira and I get 40,000 naira. What would this mean for us, for our economy? And where would this lead us? Because it looks like the government thinks there's an end date, like maybe in 2 weeks everything would be okay, or in 2 months. What do you think? Is there an end date for these sort of things, and what would it look like?